Welcome to another edition of Bible Time. This is the Monday morning edition, October 5th. And we have moved into a new home, and so this is the new location of where I'll be doing a lot of my studying. And probably a lot of Bible Times will get filmed here in the future as well. And so you can see everything's not all set up yet, and so I don't have all the things that I will be having as we unpack and get things moved in, but I do have this. And we're doing the daily Bible reading, and we're doing Second Chronicles chapters 8 and 9. And like I said in the sermon yesterday, I want to just briefly talk about a few things about how you understand the Bible. And you understand the Bible primarily in its context, in its historical, cultural, even the language context. And that's what you need to do with Chronicles. So often I see people, they read something in Chronicles and immediately they jump to the New Testament. Well, did you know that 1st and 2nd Chronicles are nowhere referred to in the New Testament? No direct references to 1st and 2nd Chronicles. And what you're trying to do is understand what was the purpose, the intent of the original author, who we believe was most likely Ezra in this case. What was his intent in writing to his audience, which were the people coming back to Jerusalem after the exile in Babylon. And Ezra is writing to them, and he has a specific purpose in mind. God has a specific purpose in mind for these books to be written. That's what we're trying to understand. Once you understand that, then you can get the application. And like I said, they didn't have the New Testament then. They didn't have anything to jump forward to. This is a message to them, and that's how you need to understand it. And that's what we are striving to do, and to give the insight so that we understand what was going on in these days. And so what you see here is the more about the reign of Solomon, King Solomon. And what you see here in chapter 8 is that Solomon is securing the kingdom both externally and internally. Externally by fortifying cities and preparing for attacks, making sure the nation is safe. And then also internally, as you see him establishing all of the feasts, all of the sacrifices, all the things that were to go on at the temple. So he's protecting them externally, and he's strengthening them internally through the temple services. And the key to this chapter 8, is verse 16, where it says, "Thus was accomplished all the work of Solomon from the day the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid until it was finished. So the house of the Lord was completed." That's huge to the people Ezra is writing to, because that's what they're doing. They're rebuilding this temple after coming back from exile. And so for them to see that, hey, this is what God did in the past. God was faithful in the past. We can trust God for the future. We can trust him for what's happening here right now. That's huge for them. This is an encouragement for them to be faithful to do what they're called to do right there and then, based on what the Lord's faithfulness in the past. That's the same thing for you and me. And then in chapter 9, first of all, you see an illustration of the wisdom that God gave to Solomon, just as he promised that he would. The Queen of Sheba comes, he answers all her questions. And so it's a brilliant demonstration of the wisdom that God gave to him, which God promised he would. But it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than just kind of a historically interesting story. This Queen of Sheba travels all this way, brings all these gifts to Solomon. Her breath is taken away by his wisdom. This is a reference to the messianic hope of their day. And Haggai was a prophet to the ones who came back from captivity, and he talked about a day in Haggai 2:7. It says, "I will shake all nations, so that the treasures of all the nations shall come in, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord of hosts." And so here's a record of that happening to a degree, with the Queen of Sheba coming to visit with Solomon. And that's the messianic hope. That's what they're looking for, the Messiah to come, who would reign there in Jerusalem, and all the nations would come and worship him and look to him for instruction. And again, you can look at the prophet Isaiah, who the people would have had and been very familiar with. Isaiah chapter 60 and verse 3, it says, "The nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see, they all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from afar, and your daughters shall be carried on the hip. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and exult, because the abundance of the sea shall be turned to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, and all those of Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall bring good news, the praises of the Lord. And so this has given them hope for the future, that the Lord has been faithful to do all that he said he would do, and we've seen little pictures of that along the way. This is going to give us the strength to keep going. This is a message of hope. And the rest of 2 Chronicles 9 talks about the great and incredible wealth that Solomon enjoyed, which again was exactly what God had promised him. And so this is a message of hope to the people coming back from captivity. This is what's going to strengthen them to keep going, to be faithful, to do what God has called them to do. Because what God has done, he's going to fully do someday when the Messiah comes. That's what they're looking to. That's what they're thinking about. That's what this is all about. And you'll notice when it comes to the end of Solomon's life here, when it talks about the end of his life there in chapter 9, it doesn't talk about all the stuff that we read about in Kings, all of the wives and his apostasy and his going after the idols. None of that's there because this is a message not about Solomon's failures, but about the Lord's faithfulness. That's what's being emphasized here. Now, see, without even having a New Testament, you've got something to hold on to here today. The Lord's faithfulness and the promises that he's made and how good he is to his people. That's enough for you and me to start off this week to be encouraged and to follow after the Lord today just by reading 2 Chronicles chapters 8 and 9 and understanding it in its context. So let's be sure to be good practicing Bible students here that are following the principles of biblical interpretation. We're not jumping around. We're not using one place as a launching point to go somewhere else. We're just understanding what it was that was written, what was Ezra trying to communicate to the people of his day. And enclosed in that is a wonderful message of hope for you and me as well. So I'm looking forward to another week of Bible time, and we'll see you tomorrow for more.